Before I'm leaving Kingman, I was looking at my route, which is going to take me down to Havasu, but I wanted to do some other stories, and what I came across, and I had forgotten about it, was there was a reported UFO crash in 1953 in Kingman. And it happened to be one of the most documented crashes next to the Roswell that everybody knows about that story. But the Kingman crash is well documented. So I looked on a map, and I'm only 20 minutes in the direction that I'm pointing, just over that range. So let's go adventuring, let's go exploring. The Kingman crash in 1953 is well documented, so I encourage you to go on YouTube and other researches to really get all the details. I'm going to give you the highlights, but I'm going to give you a little caveat. I took an hour to find out where the location was, so I'm not going to tell everybody where it is. You know, go on your road trip, find out and get some discovery going. But what happened is you're dealing with a situation where a reported crash happens, 1953 in May. An engineer, later on, and a number of years later in his statements, he, along with 40 other professionals from Indian Wells, which is an Air Force base, will go into a little more depth, were transported in the middle of the night to go on a 3.5-hour drive from Indian Wells to the north of Kingman. And thereupon they found a intact spacecraft about 30 by 15 with 3 dead aliens and 1 alive alien, which we'll talk about later on. It'll be a separate story. Now, supposedly the craft and the aliens were transported back to Area 51 and or one of the Air Force bases in Mexico. Now, when you look at the routes they could have taken, definitely came out of Indian Wells in 3-hour drive. And if you look how remote this area still is, and this is 70 years later, so you can imagine what it looked like back 70 years ago. But what they found was, later on, it wasn't just this one spacecraft. There was 2 others supposedly. One head was destroyed, and another one they picked up maybe about 10 miles away from this site, which I'll tell you later on, which I also looked at. But this site here contains the 1953 crash area of the Kingman. In 1953, they had the Atomic Energy Commission going to the Nevada Proving Grounds, which are only 3 hours away, doing so many nuclear tests. And everything was under very tight security. There was new radar systems around Kingman, which they, attribute the fact is it could have affected the spaceships. And no, I'm traveling in the desert, but I'm not going to be beamed up. But since 1953, you've had a lot of air, a lot of time, decades go by with not a lot of research going on. And all of a sudden, the 70s, 80s hit with heavy research, a lot of deniability, of course, going on. But now we're starting at the age of disclosure. And that disclosure has taken a lot of forms in the last year and a half. Oh, it was a bit of levity. I included the Mars Attack, because that movie was filmed partly in this same area on Red Lake. And I thought it was pretty funny, very close to the crash site they filmed this. Mars Attack. I think the director knew. An original investigator was Art Bell, rest in peace, on the Coast to Coast AM, had talked about this very issue around Kingman. And this is over 25 years ago. But since that time, you've had other ones like George Knapp come forward out of Las Vegas. And I've made a list of all the other media outlets that are now talking about this. And of course, the government agencies are having hearing after hearings the last year and a half. You can feel the disclosure getting close. We're going to find out pretty quick here what's really been going on. And that other story, we'll save it for the alive alien. That's another one. But look how many planets are life friendly. We're into the hundreds of millions. So let's keep an open mind about aliens. There's so much research going on right now and actually visiting the sites. Reflect on disclosure. We could be in a lot of problems if disclosure happens. There could be a lot of chaos, but that's going to be for a separate video. Hope you liked it. Yeah, please like, comment, especially on this particular topic. Get your comments going. It'd be greatly appreciated. The desert holds a lot of mysteries, and I'll be traveling out in the desert for a number of months, so I'll be coming up with more stories for you.